Night had fallen, and the large, bright moon illuminated the sinister shadow that slithered across the witch's house window. Detective Ricardo felt a shiver, even in the warm room. An old book, resting on the table, began to spin on its own, its pages flapping like owl wings. It was a book that spoke of a place between worlds, a dangerous place full of black magic. Suddenly, a scream cut through the silence. It was the voice of the witch, Sophia, a scream of pure terror. But who was she running from? Sophia's scream echoed through the old house, a thin thread of fear that raised the hairs on Detective Ricardo's arms. He leaped from the armchair, the wood creaking under his weight. The magical book, which moments before had been spinning on its own, was now motionless, as if it too had been startled by the sound. Ricardo knew the fear in Sophia's voice, but this was different, deeper, more desperate than anything he had ever heard from her. Adrenaline propelled him out of the room, his heart pounding like a war drum. The house was a labyrinth of dark corridors and creaking doors, each shadow seeming to hide a threat. The smell of herbs and incense, normally comforting, was now overlaid with a metallic, nauseating odor, like old blood. Ricardo ran, imagining the worst, the most terrible of nightmares unfolding in the rooms of the house. He found Sophia in the garden, huddled behind a huge azalea, her eyes wide, full of absolute terror. The moonlight bathed her pale face, highlighting the strands of rebellious hair escaping her hastily tied bun. She was trembling, not from cold, but from fear. And there was something different about her. A strange, dark aura, as if a dark mist had settled around her. "Ricardo," she whispered, her voice hoarse, almost inaudible. It was him. Ricardo cautiously approached, his hand instinctively going to the weapon in his holster. He didn't see anyone, but the air carried the same oppressive energy, the same sense of imminent threat that the old book had predicted. "Him who?" Ricardo asked, his voice low and firm, trying to calm the witch. He knew Sophia's fear was real, that she wasn't making anything up. He had witnessed too many strange phenomena to doubt her perception, her keen intuition for the supernatural. "The Guardian," Sophia said, the words coming between sobs. "He was here, in the house. He came after the book, after the secret." The secret. Ricardo remembered the faded, ancient cover of the book, the strange runes engraved on its spine. A book that, according to Sophia, contained a key to another world. A world as powerful and dangerous as it was beautiful and fascinating. A world that could open doors to fantastic creatures, but also to monsters of darkness too frightening to be imagined. "Now, what did he want?" Ricardo asked, feeling a wave of cold wash over him. He was a detective, accustomed to dealing with criminals, murderers, thieves. But this was a world that transcended the laws of nature, that violently clashed with common logic. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in her hands. The power of the book. He wants to use it to open the portal, to bring chaos to our world. Chaos. The words sounded like a silent thunderclap in his ears. He knew then that the situation was more serious than he had imagined. It wasn't just a matter of ghosts or illusions. It was a battle against ancient and dark forces, forces that threatened reality itself. "Who is he?" Ricardo insisted, realizing that he needed more information to protect Sophia, and consequently, the world. Sophia hesitated. He is a member of the Shadow Order, an ancient order that feeds on black magic. I always knew they were around, looking for the book, but I never imagined they would dare to come so close." A new shiver ran through Ricardo. Shadow Order. The name sounded like a judgment, a sentence. He imagined hidden faces, eyes burning with malice and power. He felt a new fear, a tension that tightened his chest, as if he himself were trapped between two worlds, that of reality, and that of the magic he, once a skeptic, now knew so well. He knew the night was far from over. The fight to protect Sophia, humanity, and the balance between worlds was just beginning. He would have to ally himself with a modern witch and fight against an enemy that could be both man and creature of a hidden and appalling universe. The game, finally, had begun. Sophia's fear was palpable, a cold mist that mingled with the damp night. Ricardo felt his skin crawl at the description of the Shadow Order, a name that echoed in his bones like a death knell. He needed to see. He needed to understand. "Where is he now?" Ricardo asked, his voice firm, despite the inner tremor. Sophia pointed to the dark forest surrounding the house, a sea of shadows where any creature could hide. A distant howl, sharp and terrifying, cut through the silence of the night, confirming Ricardo's worst fears. Sophia, still trembling, explained that the Guardian, a powerful and ancient being, possessed shadow manipulation abilities, able to move like a ghost, to merge with the darkness. Finding someone like that would be like looking for a needle in an infinite haystack, especially in that dense and mysterious forest. But Ricardo, despite the growing terror, could not retreat. He was involved, trapped in the web of magic and danger that Sophia had woven. The witch, despite her fear, showed surprising strength. She took a small crystal vial from her pocket, filled with a liquid that glowed with an inner light. "This might help track him," she said, her voice still trembling, but with a thread of determination. It was an elixir made with rare herbs and ancestral potions, a formula capable of detecting black magic. Ricardo looked at the magical liquid with admiration and apprehension. It was another world opening before him. They advanced through the woods, feeling the tension increase with each step. The elixir in the vial glowed brighter and brighter, pulsing like an accelerated heart. The smell of damp earth mingled with the intense aroma of herbs, a smell that, despite the growing threat, was surprisingly comforting. The moon, now obscured by dark clouds, cast long distorted shadows, transforming the trees into grotesque beings. Suddenly, Sophia's vial shone intensely, emitting a flash that cut through the darkness. The light pointed to a huge, centuries-old oak tree, its twisted and macabre trunk like a bony arm grasping the sky. Ricardo felt a shock run down his spine. Something was there, hidden in the depths of that ancient tree, emanating a malevolent and powerful energy. They approached cautiously, each branch creaking like a warning. Ricardo, with his weapon ready, illuminated the base of the oak with his flashlight, revealing a dark and deep opening, like a devouring black mouth. The smell of old blood became unbearable. The elixir pulsed frantically, vibrating in his hands like a living being. Sophia, her eyes fixed on the sinister entrance, whispered, "He's in there, feeding on the power of the book." Ricardo knew this was a decisive moment, a crucial point. He knew he wasn't dealing with an ordinary thief, but with a creature of darkness that fed on black magic and possessed superior power. He needed to find a way to stop the Guardian, to prevent him from getting what he wanted. But entering that darkness was to surrender to uncertainty, to immeasurable danger. What awaited inside the oak? Ghostly creatures? An army of shadows? Or, something even worse, something that could destroy the fragile line between his world and the supernatural world? The fragile reality he knew. Breath caught in their throats, Ricardo and Sophia prepared to face the unknown. The fight to save the world, and their own future, was about to begin. Ricardo and Sophia plunged into the dark opening of the oak, their breath caught in their throats. The air was cold and damp, carrying a fetid odor that scratched their nostrils. Ricardo's flashlight could barely break through the total darkness, revealing only a few meters ahead, a narrow, damp tunnel that seemed to extend into the depths of the earth. The elixir in Sophia's hands glowed with an almost blinding intensity, confirming the presence of something evil nearby. With each step, they felt the weight of the place's history, a dark and ancient aura that oppressed their chests and chilled their souls. The tunnel descended abruptly, and soon they found themselves in a vast subterranean cavern, the ceiling so high it resembled the night sky full of stars. But these stars were luminous points emanating from strange rock formations that resembled giant bones, and the floor was covered with a viscous, dark liquid that gleamed slightly under the flashlight's light. The air was stuffy, heavy, as if they were breathing fear itself. In the center of the cavern, under a gigantic crystal that emanated an intense purple glow, was the Guardian. He wasn't a grotesque and horrible monster as Ricardo had imagined, but a man, or rather, the silhouette of a man. He was enveloped in dense shadows, his form only vaguely defined, and his eyes gleamed like infernal embers. Beside him, resting on a dark stone pedestal, was the old book, its pages opening and closing with a soft, sinister sound. The aura of black magic was oppressive, sharp, suffocating. The Guardian slowly raised his hand, and a wave of dark energy erupted from the cavern, throwing Ricardo and Sophia against the stone walls. The impact was brutal. Ricardo felt his ribs ache, and his head throbbed. Sophia, closer to the Guardian, screamed and fell to her knees. As Ricardo got up, staggering, he saw the Guardian reach for the book. A sinister smile, perceived amidst the shadows that enveloped him, was the harbinger of an even greater threat. The purple crystal intensified its glow, the energy concentrating on the Guardian. He whispered something in a strange language, and a powerful portal appeared above the book, a vortex of dark energies that shone with terrifying force. At that moment, a tremor ran through the cavern. The walls shook, and the strange rock formations began to disintegrate, as if an underground earthquake were beginning. From the portal, horrible and fantastic creatures emerged, beings of darkness that seemed to feed on darkness. Ricardo understood, in a flash of horror, that the Guardian was not only opening a portal to another world, but that he was bringing the terrible creatures of that world into ours, and they were far more dangerous than anything he could imagine. The fight now was not just for a magic book, but for the very survival of humanity. But before Ricardo could react, before he or Sophia could think of fighting those otherworldly beings, something unexpected happened. Sophia, wounded but imposing, rose with supernatural strength and a glint in her eyes he had never seen before. With a powerful cry, she raised her hands, and from her fingers poured a pure, powerful white light that projected a protective barrier around them. It was a pure and bright magic, a light that tore through the darkness, a light that clashed against the black magic emanating from the portal and the creatures. It was a light that, for a moment, seemed to gain strength and dominate the cavern. Then the light disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared, and the cavern was swallowed by the deepest darkness. A deafening silence fell over the place, interrupted only by Sophia's groan of suffering as she collapsed into Ricardo's arms. But the darkness wasn't natural. It was an artificial darkness, a darkness that absorbed everything, reality itself. And from within it, a deep, sinister voice echoed, "You cannot stop me. The union of worlds has already begun." The portal remained open, and the dark creatures continued to arrive, approaching silently, but now much faster. And suddenly, the cavern itself began to crumble, the earth opening up, an abyss forming around them, amidst despair. Ricardo's last image was of the immense abyss engulfing them little by little, in a darkness that was greater than everything. And then, silence. Total and absolute silence.